Water is life. Water is power. Water has become the new oil. Sadly, it's becoming an increasingly scarce resource across the globe through overuse and pollution. But who really controls the water we drink? A deep dive into the planet's water situation reveals that in the coming decades, every country, including the United States, will have to determine how to treat water as an economic good, a human right, and a depleting resource. As these issues become more acute, tensions have already begun to escalate. But who is really behind this? All of this and more on today's episode of Edge of Wonder.
Welcome to Edge of Wonder. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm Rob. Previously, we did an episode on pole shifting, the real-life possibility that life on Earth could massively change if the magnetic poles reverse.
We care about letting you guys know about potential issues related to Earth that not a lot of other people are talking about, but should. Today, we're going to talk about a potentially even bigger issue: water.
Have any of you seen the movie The Big Short? You all know that it was based on the real-life story of Michael Burry, who saw the coming of the financial crisis in 2008 and bet against the housing market while making millions. At the end of the movie, though, it says something very strange. Burry is putting all of his money into one thing: water.
Some of you guys might be thinking, well, how can you invest in water, and why would you want to when, well, water is everywhere? Well, water is everywhere, but did you know that only 2.5% of our water in the world is fresh water, and only 1% of that is easily accessible? Also, what about contamination?
So is drinkable water becoming the new oil? And just like oil, do we have to treat water as an economic good or a human right and a depleting resource?
In this episode, we wanted to take a step back and talk about something that truly needs to be addressed. Because the reality is, water is already becoming a scarce commodity for many people in third world countries. If people don't take action in the future, this could affect everyone.
This really brings up a lot of moral and ethical questions as well. We've been talking a lot in recent episodes about who controls the large corporations.
Should they control and own a lot of the fresh water? And if so, what does that mean for us?
In the US, an average American uses over 100 gallons of water a day, and the average European uses about 66 gallons. Now granted, cooking, washing clothes, flushing toilets, taking showers, drinking water, etc., all of these are included, but that's a lot of water.
Now factor in industrial use, and ready for this, a whopping 400 billion gallons of water are used per day in the US alone, with half of it being used for thermoelectric power generation.
And we don't even have the biggest population in the world in the US. Okay, did you know about 1.8 billion people worldwide are drinking water that is contaminated with feces? 1.8, can you imagine that? And 2.5 billion people do not have access to improved sanitation facilities.
Also, in many developing nations, the women spend 25% of their day collecting water. But that isn't what's most shocking. If you count all the South African women and children, they walk a daily equivalent to 16 trips to the moon and back just to fetch water.
The World Resources Institute has estimated that by 2025, 2/3 of the world's population will live in water-stressed areas concentrated in the Middle East, North Africa, and Western Asia.
So what could happen? Well, this could actually lead countries to go to war with each other over water shortages, which has already started to happen in Syria.
According to a recent report from Newsweek, the next major war could be over water between Iraq, Syria, and Turkey over two vital rivers that run through the region. Nabil al-Saman, a Syrian expert on international waters, called this the water war, as this is being used as a weapon for the commercial commodity controlled by the state for political ends. Private versus public, who owns the water?
Water investments are lucrative for companies since there is always going to be an unwavering demand for this increasingly scarce resource. So of course this brings in a lot of fear, which is, will private investment determine water management and market rates, or will basic human necessities drive it?
Opponents of water privatization also have problems with companies profiting from water, which they argue is a public resource. They say, is the air we breathe the next essential resource for sale? Makes sense. So some people think it shouldn't really be for sale.
So that kind of reminds me of like Spaceballs, you know, where they're selling the
Actually, that's a perfect.
the canned air, right?
Yeah. Cue it.
All right, so a Pepsi VP said in 2000, the biggest enemy is tap water. So already we know where this is going, which was followed up with, when we're done, tap water will be relegated to irrigation and washing dishes, said Susan D. Wellington of Quaker Oats.
The scary part of this is that the three big corporations of Nestle, Coke, and Pepsi are all purchasing water and on a large scale.
The city of Sacramento in California let Nestle bottle and sell excess, whatever that means, tap water. They are purchasing the water for $1 per 750 gallons and then selling this for like $1 to $3 for, a 16-ounce bottle of water. By the way, for those of you who watched our Committee of 300 video and know that everything of the 300 comes from Switzerland, well, so does Nestle's headquarters.
The world's largest company, Suez, serves about 1 billion people worldwide, including 20% of China's urban population. According to the In-Depth Water Yearbook, 63 million people in the US are now served in some way by private water companies. American Water is the biggest water company here, and in 2016, its revenue was over $3.3 billion.
However, it does cost a lot to treat water. Globally, about $420 billion in capital spending is needed annually for waterworks, but realistically, only about $190 billion is actually spent, according to Global Water Intelligence. So as a result, infrastructure is deteriorating.
But like everything, and considering the missing hundreds of billions of dollars, corruption is a huge factor because of lack of oversight.
According to a New York Times article,
quote, bottled water manufacturers are not required to disclose as much information as municipal water utilities of gaps in federal oversight authority.
It goes on to say that the Food and Drug Administration oversees bottled water and the US EPA is in charge of tap water.
So there's one good thing about private companies, though, owning the water, is that they'll invest more and have state-of-the-art technology to keep water clean and fresh.
But the question on everyone's mind is, if water does become more scarce, will they raise the price and force us to pay more for it?
It's on my mind.
I think it's on everyone's mind.
So, we gotta talk about China.
The Edge of Wonder.
One of the countries that has the most people and the most serious water problem is China.
Authorities estimate that about 80% of China's surface groundwater is not fit for drinking, and 90% of the groundwater in urban areas is contaminated.
So more than 360 million people, that's more than the population of the United States, or about a quarter of the country's population, does not have access to clean water. With the main sources of water pollution in China coming from manufacturing, chemical, fertilizer, paper, and clothing.
And according to an official Chinese report, 70% of China's rivers and lakes are so polluted that they can't even sustain marine life.
Jeez.
Things are so bad that it caused the extinction of one of the Baiji dolphin, a mammal native only to the Yangtze River.
And I'm speculating that that's where the three-eyed fish came from in The Simpsons.
Probably.
Yeah. The yellow, which is the second largest and is known as the cradle of Chinese civilization, has over 4,000 petrochemical plants on its banks and have polluted its waters beyond recovery.
China is one of the most water-stressed countries in the world. China has a fifth of the world's population, but less than 7% of it is fresh water.
Beijing's groundwater was considered inexhaustible, but that too has been being pumped faster than it can be replenished, having dropped by nearly 1,000 feet in the last 40 years.
However, a lot of this contributes to corruption throughout the Communist Party's history. Mao's Cultural Revolution produced huge amounts of sewage and waste, and these pollutants were discharged into rivers, which still continue to this day.
In 2008, a report came out that 3,000 out of 21,000 petrochemical plants on the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers discharge billions of tons of wastewater per year.
There's even something called cancer villages in China, where over 50% of the people who live in any one of these 400 villages have cancer. And these were statistics back in 2002. I'm sure it is like way higher now if these things don't exist anymore.
Many experts and scientists say a solution for China to start improving water quality for urban areas would be to include forest restoration, more efficient agricultural practices, and other conservation best practices.
But really, China would have to undergo a massive change for this to happen.
Okay, let's talk about chemicals and water. Pollution is a huge problem when it comes to water, but there is a great threat because it has more sources, no way to stop it, and seeps into our tap water inconspicuously in small amounts and is starting to add up.
What is it? It is pharmaceutical ingredients, illicit drugs, and numerous substances of modern life with largely unknown health effects.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, which regulates drinking water, has identified 126 substances and counting that may be pervasive in the U.S. drinking water supplies, which it calls contaminants of emerging concern, or CECs, or emerging contaminants.
And how does it enter our waters? Well, when we take medications or illegal drugs, part of it is absorbed in our bodies, and the rest is passed, well, when we go to the bathroom and when we flush the toilet.
I think they get it, Ben.
Yeah.
Some people also dispose of their drugs in the toilet, in which their particles don't end up getting filtered. The wastewater containing CECs is then released into rivers or other bodies of water used as drinking water sources.
CECs enter the body not only through drinking water, but also through the produce grown on land irrigated with water containing contaminants.
Okay, according to the Epoch Times, research hydrologist Dana Copland, chief of the USGS Toxic Program's Contaminants of Emerging Concern project, that was a mouthful, said, quote, "You get exposed to a whole soup of things. For a fish, it's what they live and breathe in, but for humans, it's what we're breathing, it's what we're drinking, it's what we're lathering up on our skin for cosmetics, it's what we eat," unquote. Now, what is really alarming is that a study by the Idaho State University School hypothesized that the effect observed in fish indicates that this mixture of pharmaceuticals in the drinking water may be triggering autism in some people. Some scientists are hopeful that the new tools will be invented and new testing will be done to start catching these before it's too late.
A study at Harvard found that 6 million Americans are exposed through tap water to polyfluoroalkyl and perfluoroalkyl. These substances are also known as PFOSs and PFASs, a class of chemicals used in paints and firefighting foam at levels at or above the safety limits. PFASs have been linked to kidney cancer, elevated cholesterol, obesity, and endocrine disruption. By the way, these chemicals bond with fluorine, known in chemistry as the very deadly poison.
Wait a minute. So, what is the difference between fluorine and fluoride then?
Okay, well, fluoride is actually a reduced form of fluorine, and they say it's only harmful in large quantities, but I mean, oh my gosh, it's in everything, right? And I mean, with all the exposure that we're getting, who really knows what it's doing to our bodies? Some found it reduces cavities, which is why, of course, everyone thought it would be good to spread it everywhere.
Yeah, great plan. So we know that fluoride is becoming a major concern for a lot of people, and we covered a little bit of this in our Third Eye episode. But we'll be diving deeper into the fluoride conspiracy. Well, it doesn't really seem that there is one, but we'll talk about it more in our next episode on water.
Also, for those of you following our videos, you know that we are doing a whole series on exposing the deep state and what their ultimate goal is. We started with the Committee of 300 and their plans for how to form their one world government.
We also talked about, at length, eugenics and all the methods that they're doing to carry out their plan. The big conspiracy out there is that they are purposely polluting our waters to make us sick, to kill us off, to force us to buy their drugs, and mixing pollutants in water such as fluoride to actually significantly dumb us down.
Since water is crucial to our survival, it would make sense that they would start to have these systems in place. So this is what we'll be talking about in our next episode. But this water topic is huge, and the scope of it is just too broad. So we will do one on the dangers of plastic bottles and fluoride.
Now, if you're worried about your own drinking water, most cities have free water testing kits that they'll send you, and you can test your tap water. And if they don't, then you can find tests online that are not too expensive.
Or you can go to epa.gov/CCR to see the rating of your own public water.
Yeah, so guys, be on the lookout for those next episodes, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe and hit those notification bells.
And until next time, we'll see you guys out
On the edge.
of the deep green sea.
What is that?
It's a Cure song.
Oh, man. That's so bad.
Hey everyone, have you been enjoying Edge of Wonder? Do you want to help us keep creating new and exciting content every week? Now's your chance. Go to
edgeofwonder.nyc.
So guys, we just launched our own version of Patreon, our exclusive donation page where you can pledge monthly at a minimum of $1.50 a month.
But we'll have different tiers of subscription, which will have different offerings depending on how much you pledge. And we want to keep focusing on making great content for you guys and grow it into something you guys will love. So where is it?
edgeofwonder.nyc.
Anyway, we love you guys, and we'll see you out.
On the edge. And kill.
You sound like a little kid saying, like trying to say a really complicated word.
Polyfluorokill.
We're doomed.